people have now spoken, and they have not given an outright majority to any party, thereby demanding cooperation from their political leaders. With this historic result, our country has arrived now at the next great fork in the road of our long and complex history. As we digest the results of the 2024 elections and their implications, I know that many of you are feeling uncertain and anxious about the future. Yet it is important to remind ourselves that we have faced times of even greater anxiety and uncertainty before. Throughout our history, South Africans have overcome seemingly impossible odds together. We have done it before, and we must do it now again. Just over a year ago, I spoke to all of you from the floor of Gallagher Estate, where the final votes are now being counted. Following my re-election as the federal leader of the Democratic Alliance, I committed the DA then to forming a unified opposition bloc that came to be known as the Multi-Party Charter. Throughout the election campaign, I encouraged voters to support the Democratic Alliance and the Multi-Party Charter to ensure that we brought the ANC below 50% and were able to build a collective majority of 50% plus one to form a new government. While the DA grew nationally and in 6 provinces, the Charter unfortunately did not collectively achieve majorities at a national or provincial level. Despite this fact, the Democratic Alliance is extremely grateful to our multi-party charter partners, and we remain committed to working constructively with those that are prepared to stand with us in putting the country first at a perilous time. During that same speech from the floor of the DA's Congress last year, I also indicated what the DA's position would be in a scenario where the ANC loses its majority and the MPC falls short. At the time, I said that if the scenario materializes, and I quote, "The DA will make it our #1 priority and do absolutely everything in our power to prevent an ANC-EFF doomsday coalition from taking power," unquote. In the 14 months since I spoke those words, the rise of the MK party has only added urgency now to that commitment. The reality is that the DA is the only party that foresaw this risk and spoke openly and honestly with voters about it. And so it has now come to pass. Based on current projections, a combination of the ANC, the EFF and MK have the numbers to take power nationally, as well as in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. The bottom line is that collectively, they have the numbers to take power, whilst the multi-party charter does not. This is of course not the outcome that we wanted, but it is the outcome that we must now deal with. The DA will not bury our heads in the sand. We will face up to this challenge, for that is the task of leadership. All through the election, the Democratic Alliance undertook to rescue South Africa from the doomsday coalition. And we will now do our level best to do exactly that. We will do so not only for the people who voted for us, but for the people of South Africa as a whole. As a result, I can today announce that the DA's federal executive has unanimously adopted a resolution to initiate exploratory talks with other parties that share a commitment to the South African Constitution, and to identify options for the formation of governments at a national and provincial level where no party has obtained an outright majority. To facilitate this process, the Federal Executive has appointed a negotiating team composed of Ivan Meyer, Saviwe Gahube, Alan Winde, Tony Leon, and Ryan Coetzee, as well as Helen Zille. They will facilitate this engagement with other political parties. The purpose of these initial talks will be to gather information of what options are available to the DA as we seek to rescue South Africa from doomsday. This talented and experienced team will report back to myself and to the federal executive, whereafter the party will decide on the way forward. I, however, want to assure South Africans and the people of South Africa that the DA will always act in the interests of people throughout this unprecedented moment in our history. In all that we do, we will be guided by the DA's fundamental commitment to uphold the Constitution and the rule of law, promoting non-racialism, effecting clean, accountable government with zero tolerance for corruption, and building a social market economy that creates jobs. Our engagements with other parties will also be rooted in the 7 apex priorities outlined in our manifesto. These include to create 2 million new jobs, to end load shedding and water shedding, to halve the rate of violent crime, abolish cadre deployment, lift 6 million people out of poverty, triple the number of grade 4 learners who can read for meaning, and ensure quality healthcare for all. My fellow citizens, for the Democratic Alliance, burying our heads in the sand while South Africa faces its greatest threat since the dawn of democracy is simply not an option. Because before all of this, we are patriotic South Africans who love this country. And that is why we will not recoil from complexity or difficult decisions. Instead, we will approach these exploratory talks with cool heads and an open mind. We will meet the demands of history in this moment with the maturity and determination to live up to our campaign pledge to rescue South Africa. Like you, I am a South African first. The people who make up the DA are South Africans first. And we have learned from the past 30 years the devastating consequences when party interests are put before the national interest. So, if you are anxious or scared about what South Africa will look like following these unprecedented election results, I want to reassure you. I too am a father to 3 young daughters. And like millions of South Africans, I don't want them to grow up in a country run by a party like MK that wants to abolish the Constitution, which wants to subvert the judiciary, and that plans to expropriate private property and nationalize the Reserve Bank. These are the things contained in the manifestos of the EFF and MK, and they amount to an all-out assault on the Constitution of our country. They will cause untold unemployment, misery, hardship and hunger for millions of our people. And allowing this to just happen will set South Africa's flag and Constitution on fire, just as the DA warned during the course of the election. This will signal the end of the South African dream that we all shared in 1994, and for which many, many people paid the ultimate sacrifice to see come to reality. I want to assure you that the DA will not give up on our Constitution or for a country that belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. Our Constitution now faces its greatest test since 1994. And the moment now calls for all patriotic South Africans to step up and defend our Constitution. The DA will answer the call of South Africa. And we urge all others who love our Constitution and all it represents to set aside petty politics and narrow sectarian interests and join hands now to act in the interests of the country that we all love. Our country needs us now, and we cannot let her down. Thank you very much.